put your trust in your higher self in order to free yourself of all physical and emotional pain. Forgiveness is the key to freedom. I often ask clients, would you rather be right or would you rather be happy? We all have opinions on who was right and who was wrong according to our own perceptions, and we can all find ways to justify our feelings. We want to punish others for what they did to us. However, we are the ones running the story over and over in our own minds. It is foolish for us to punish ourselves in the present because someone hurt us in the past. To release the past, we want to be willing to forgive, even if we don't know how. Forgiveness means giving up our hurtful feelings and just letting the whole thing go. A state of non-forgiveness actually destroys something within ourselves. No matter what avenue of spirituality you follow, you will usually find that forgiveness is an enormous issue at any time, but most particularly when there is an illness. When we are ill, we really need to look around and see who it is we need to forgive. And usually the very person who we think we will never forgive is the one we need to forgive the most. Not forgiving someone else doesn't harm the other person in the slightest, but it plays havoc with us. The issues aren't theirs, the issues are ours. The grudges and hurts you feel have to do with forgiving yourself, not someone else. Affirm that you are totally willing to forgive everyone. I am willing to free myself from the past. I am willing to forgive all those who may ever have harmed me. And I forgive myself for having harmed others. If you think of anyone who may have harmed you in any way at any point in your life, bless that person with love and release them, and then dismiss the thought. I wouldn't be where I am today if I hadn't forgiven the people who have hurt me. I would not want to punish myself today for what they did to me in the past. I'm not saying that it would be easy. It's just that now I can look back at that stuff and say, oh yes, that's something that happened. However, I don't live there anymore. And it is not the same as condoning their behavior. If you feel ripped off by another, know that nobody can take anything from you that is rightfully yours. If it belongs to you, it will return to you at the right time. If something doesn't come back to you, it wasn't meant to. You need to accept that and go on with your life. To become free, you need to get out of your self-righteous resentment and off your pity pot. I love this expression, which originated with Alcoholics Anonymous, because it is such a wonderful, accurate description. When you are sitting on your pity pot, you are this helpless person who has no power at all. In order to have power, you want to stand on your own 2 feet and take responsibility. Take a moment and close your eyes, if you can, and imagine a beautiful stream of water in front of you. Take the old painful experience, the hurt, and the unforgiveness, and put the whole incident in the stream. See it begin to dissolve and drift downstream until it totally dissipates and disappears. You can do this as often as you want. This is a time for compassion and healing. Go within and connect with that part of yourself that knows how to heal. You are incredibly capable. Be willing to go to new levels to find capabilities of which you were not aware. Not just to cure dis-ease, but to truly heal yourself on all possible levels. To make yourself whole in the deepest sense of the word. to accept every part of yourself and every experience you have ever had, and to know that it is all part of the tapestry of your life this time around. I love Emmanuel's book. There is a passage in it which has a good message. The question to Emmanuel is, how do we experience painful circumstances without becoming embittered by them? And Emmanuel's reply is, by seeing them as lessons and not as retribution. Trust life, my friends. However far afield life seems to take you, this trip is necessary. You have come to traverse a wide terrain of experience in order to verify where truth lies and where your distortion is in that terrain. You will then be able to return to your home center, your soul self, refreshed and wiser. If only we could understand that all of our so-called problems are just opportunities for us to grow and to change, and that most of them come from the vibrations that we have been giving off. All we really need to do is change the way we think, be willing to dissolve the resentment, and be willing to forgive. Part 3. Loving yourself. Can you remember the last time you were in love? Your heart went, ah! It was such a wonderful feeling. It's the same thing with loving yourself, except that you will never leave. Once you have your love for yourself, it's with you for the rest of your life. So you want to make it the best relationship you can have. Chapter 8. How to Love Yourself. When you forgive and let go, not only does a huge weight drop off your shoulders, but the doorway to your own self-love opens. For many of you who have been working on loving yourselves, and for those of you who are just beginning, I'm going to explore some ways to help you learn how to love yourselves. I call it my 10 steps, and I have sent thousands of people this list over the years. Loving yourself is a wonderful adventure. It's like learning to fly. Imagine if we all had the power to fly at will. How exciting it would be. Let's begin to love ourselves right now. Many of us seem to suffer from a lack of self-esteem at one level or another. It's very difficult for us to love ourselves because we have all these so-called faults inside us that we feel make it impossible to love ourselves exactly as we are. Usually, we make loving ourselves conditional, and then when we are involved in relationships, we make loving the other person conditional also. We've all heard that we really can't love someone else until we love ourselves. So now that we have seen the barriers we have set up for ourselves, how do we catapult to the next step? 1. Probably the most important key is to stop criticizing yourself. I've talked about criticism before. If we tell ourselves that we are okay, no matter what is going on, we can make changes in our lives easily. It is when we make ourselves bad that we have great difficulty. We all change, everyone. Every day is a new day, and we do things a little differently than we did the day before. Our ability to adapt and flow with the process of life is part of our power. Those who have come from dysfunctional homes often become super responsible and have gotten in the habit of judging themselves unmercifully. They have grown up with tension and anxiety. The message they get as children of dysfunctional homes is, there must be something wrong with me. Think for a moment about the words you use when scolding yourself. Some of the phrases people tell me are stupid, bad boy, bad girl, useless, careless, dumb, ugly, worthless, sloppy, dirty, etc. Are these the same words you use now when you're describing yourself? There is a tremendous need to build self-worth and value in ourselves, because when we feel not good enough, we find ways to keep ourselves miserable. We create illness or pain in our bodies. We procrastinate about things that would benefit us. We mistreat our bodies with food, alcohol, and drugs. We are all insecure in some ways because we are human. Let us learn not to pretend that we are perfect. Having to be perfect only puts immense pressure on ourselves, and it prevents us from looking at areas of our lives that need healing. Instead, we could discover our creative distinctions, our individualities, and appreciate ourselves for the qualities that set us apart from others. Each one of us has a unique role to play on this earth, and when we are critical of ourselves, we obscure it. 2. We want to stop scaring ourselves. Many of us terrorize ourselves with frightful thoughts and make situations worse than they are. We take a small problem and make it into a big monster. It's a terrible way to live, always expecting the worst out of life. How many of you go to bed at night? Creating the worst possible scenario of a problem. That's like a little child who imagines monsters under the bed and then gets terrified. It's no wonder you can't sleep. As a child, you needed your parent to come and soothe you. Now, as an adult, you know you have the ability to soothe yourself. People who are ill do this a lot. Often they visualize the worst, or they are immediately planning their funerals. They may give their power to the media and see themselves as statistics. You may also do this in relationships. Someone doesn't call you and immediately you decide that you are totally unlovable and that you'll never have another relationship again. You feel abandoned and rejected. You do the same thing with your job. Someone makes a remark at work and you begin to think you're going to be fired. You build these paralyzing thoughts in your mind. Remember, these frightening thoughts are negative affirmations. If you find yourself habitually reviewing a negative thought or situation in your mind, find an image of something you really would like to replace it with. It could be a beautiful view, or a sunset, flowers, a sport, or anything you love. Use that image as your switch to image every time you find that you are scaring yourself. You could say to yourself, "No, I'm not going to think about that anymore. I'm going to think about sunsets, or roses, or Paris, or yachts, or waterfalls, or whatever your image is." If you keep doing this, you will eventually break the habit. Again, it takes practice. 3. Another way is to be gentle and kind and patient with yourself. I've heard, "Dear God, I pray for patience and I want it right now." But patience is a very powerful tool. Most of us suffer from the expectation of immediate gratification. We must have it now. We don't have the patience to wait for anything. We get irritable if we have to wait in lines or are stuck in traffic. We want all the answers and all the goodies right now. Too often, We make other people's lives miserable by our own impatience. But impatience is a resistance to learning. Impatience is resistance to learning. We want the answers without learning the lesson or doing the steps that are necessary for our growth.